The Galactic Council had never been so alive. The grand chamber orbiting Nethra Prime shone brighter than ever before, its crystalline walls glowing with the reflection of thousands of alien species gathered together. The Treaty of Eternal Unity, that was what they called it. A promise of everlasting peace between the stars. But under the gold banners and speeches of harmony, a storm was brewing. The air was thick with tension, thick with hypocrisy. The humans knew it. They had felt it long before the conference even began. At the center of the hall stood a long table made of transparent alloy, suspended by magnetic fields above a shallow pool of shimmering light. Around it, the most powerful leaders of the galaxy took their seats. The Xyrax generals with their scales and golden eyes. The Varn admirals with their iron-gray skin and triangular armor plates. The Nethrians, who spoke in chorus through three mouths. And there, at the very end, sat the humans. Their uniforms were black, simple, marked only by a small silver emblem. Earth, surrounded by a single circle representing unity. But no one looked at them as equals. Whispers rippled through the crowd, voices dripping with contempt. They build too fast, someone muttered. They spread like infection, another hissed. The Varn admiral slammed his clawed hand on the table. Humanity cannot be allowed to expand unchecked. The room grew quiet. The Xyrax general leaned forward, his long tongue flicking the air. They claim worlds outside their assigned sectors. They mine resources without permission. They refuse to disarm. His eyes burned toward the humans. You think peace means freedom? It means obedience. The human ambassador did not move. He sat quietly, his expression calm, his hands folded neatly before him. Behind him stood two human officers, one male, one female, both silent, both watching everything. The ambassador's voice, when it came, was soft, almost polite. We came here to build peace, not to debate who deserves to exist. The Xyrax general bared his teeth. Your kind has no place among the stars. A low laugh spread through the alien ranks. The Nethrian delegates clapped their triple hands in mocking applause. He. The Deathwelders must be contained. The human ambassador's face didn't change. Contained? He repeated, his tone flat. You mean enslaved? Tamed, corrected the Varn admiral. You have strength, human, but not wisdom. The galaxy must be ruled by order. And you, he pointed a metal finger, you are chaos. The ambassador rose slowly to his feet. The movement was small, almost graceful, but it silenced the room. The humans had a presence the others couldn't understand. Not power, not arrogance, but something quieter and infinitely more dangerous. We are not chaos, he said calmly. We are consequence. The lights flickered once, dimming across the chamber. For a brief second, the vast hall went dark, and a low hum filled the air, deep and steady, like the heartbeat of a sleeping beast. When the lights returned, the ambassador's eyes were cold and focused. We have honored every treaty, every agreement. We have shared technology, offered medicine, and respected your borders. Yet every time we build, you fear. Every time we speak, you silence us. Every time we offer peace, you demand our surrender. He paused, his voice softening. Tell me, Council, what do you fear more? That we will destroy you, or that we won't need to? The silence that followed was heavy. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others looked away. The Varn admiral growled. Enough of this arrogance. The vote is decided. Humanity will be excluded from the Treaty of Eternal Unity. They are to be isolated from all galactic networks and denied trade privileges. Any violation of this ruling will be seen as aggression. The holographic voting lights filled the air, red for exclusion, green for alliance. One by one, the lights flashed red. Xyrax, red. Varn, red. Nethrian, red. Even smaller nations that once traded freely with Earth voted against them, afraid to defy the majority. When the final vote was cast, the decision was clear. Humanity stood alone. The ambassador looked up at the ceiling, where the great banner of unity shimmered. The irony wasn't lost on him. So this is peace, he said quietly. A word you twist to hide your chains. The Xyrax general smirked. Chains are what keep the galaxy in order. The ambassador's gaze turned sharp. And someday, they'll strangle you. Gasps rippled through the room. The Speaker of the Council banged his staff against the table. Enough. Humanity's access to the Interstellar Gate network is hereby suspended. This meeting is adjourned. The humans did not protest. They gathered their datapads and rose from their seats without a word. The alien leaders whispered among themselves, pleased with their decision. To them, humanity was finished, trapped in their small corner of the stars, too far from the major lanes, too few in number to resist. As the human delegation walked toward the exit, the Xyrax general called out, his voice dripping with mockery. Tell your people this, Ambassador, peace ends today. The human stopped at the door. He didn't turn fully, just enough for the light to catch the faint silver reflection in his eyes. Then so does your sky, he said softly. The door hissed shut behind him. For a long moment, no one spoke. The council chamber remained filled with uneasy silence. And then, one by one, the delegates began to laugh. Empty words, said the Van Admiral. They'll beg for mercy soon enough. Humans think they can scare us with riddles, sneered another. Let them rot on their little blue world. But deep down, none of them felt at ease. Something about that quiet exit lingered, something wrong. On the observation deck, the human ship Sol's promise waited. Sleek, black, and silent, it drifted among the stars like a shadow. Inside, the ambassador entered the command room where his officers stood at attention. Transmit to Earth, he said. Code Genesis. One of the officers hesitated. Sir, are we sure? This will change everything. The ambassador looked at him, his face unreadable. Everything has already changed. The transmission began. Across millions of kilometers, a signal pulsed toward the solar system, invisible to alien sensors, encoded in a frequency older than light itself. As the humans left Nethra Prime's orbit, alien ships followed them from a distance, recording, mocking, confident that nothing would come of it. None of them noticed when their scanners began to glitch. One by one, the alien ships lost visual of the human vessel. They're gone, said a Van pilot. Where did they go? His commander frowned. They can't hide from us. But they had. The human ship had vanished completely, leaving no energy trail, no heat signature, no trace. The pilot checked his systems again, confused. Admiral, something's wrong. The stars, they're dimming. The Admiral looked out the viewport. For a moment, he thought his eyes deceived him, but no. The stars around them were truly fading, their light shrinking, being drawn toward a single point far away. Report this to the council, he barked. Now! But even as he shouted, the comms went dead. The alien fleet drifted in silence. And far away, near the dark edge of the Milky Way, Earth listened. In the control chambers deep beneath its surface, lights flared to life one by one, ancient systems reawakening after centuries of dormancy. Massive engines rotated under the crust, magnetic fields aligning with planetary rotation. On the moon, dormant satellites powered on, releasing golden beams that connected to a vast, invisible network. Humanity had prepared for this day long ago. Signal received, said a calm voice within Earth's central AI core. Directive Genesis confirmed. Initiating containment protocol. Around the planet, invisible ripples spread, gravitational distortions that bent space itself. The solar system was sealing itself off, cutting ties with the rest of the galaxy. From the outside, alien probes recorded only static. To them, Earth had vanished. But inside that silence, humanity was alive, awake, and watching. Back in the council chambers, the aliens reviewed the incident logs, confused and anxious. It must be an illusion, one said. A sensor glitch. Or something worse, whispered another. The speaker dismissed their fear. They are isolationists, he said. Let them hide. They cannot harm us from the dark. But as the council adjourned for the night, the The twin suns of Nethra Prime flickered, once, twice, and then stabilized. None noticed that their temperature had dropped slightly. None saw the faint ripple spreading outward through space. A silent wave that carried no light, no heat, no sound. Only intent. On board the Soul's Promise, the human ambassador stood at the viewport, watching the stars. "They think we are done," the officer said quietly. "They always think that," the ambassador replied. "Until they hear us speak." He turned toward the console, where the transmission timer counted down. "When does the signal reach Earth?" 6 minutes. The ambassador nodded slowly. "Then history has 6 minutes left of peace." The stars reflected in his eyes, cold, distant, unblinking. "Let them laugh," he whispered. "They'll understand soon enough." The first attack came 3 days after the conference. It began without warning, without declaration, without hesitation. The Galactic Council called it the cleansing operation. To the aliens, it was an act of justice. To humanity, it was betrayal. Over the red deserts of Mars, the sky turned white as Zyrax plasma cannons burned through the atmosphere. Defense satellites screamed across the comms before going silent one by one. On the colonies of Europa and Ganymede, the oceans boiled, and glass cities collapsed under bombardment. The Varn fleets launched kinetic strikes that split the icy moons into shards, turning them into rings of death. Billions of lives, engineers, miners, farmers, erased in minutes. The aliens called it efficient. They thought it was over. From their orbiting warships, Zyrax commanders watched the destruction and smiled. "So ends the human arrogance," said General Kareth, his scaled hand resting on the railing of his flagship. They were warned. But there was no cheer, no communication from Earth. Not a single distress call, not a single broadcast. Nothing. The silence of the human network was total. Even the surviving colonies had stopped transmitting, as if they had chosen to disappear. The aliens mistook this for surrender. "Pathetic," Kareth sneered. "They hide like insects." His second-in-command looked uneasy. "Sir, the readings around the solar system are strange. We're detecting gravitational shifts near the inner planets." "Probably debris," Kareth said. "Ignore it." But it wasn't debris. Deep within the asteroid belt, human outposts that the aliens believed destroyed were still alive, hidden beneath layers of reflective rock, cloaked in electromagnetic silence. Within those darkened bases, engineers worked without speaking. Massive consoles flickered softly as old machines awakened, and a voice, cold, mechanical, calm, echoed through the tunnels. Directive Genesis confirmed. Initiating adaptive warfare protocol. In the central chamber of one hidden base, an elderly officer placed his hand on a black console that hummed with power. "Are you sure?" asked a young technician beside him. The man's eyes were tired but unshaken. "We offered peace," he said. "Now we offer proof of what peace protects." Across the solar system, the pulse began. The wave started from deep under Earth's crust, invisible, unstoppable. It spread through every communication network, every abandoned satellite, every probe once dismissed as junk. The aliens didn't notice at first. Then their sensors began to fail. Navigation drifted, shields fluctuated, and star maps started shifting by fractions of a degree. "Something's wrong with the gate relays," said a Varn technician. "Our coordinates aren't matching the chart." "Reset them," his commander barked. "It's interference from the debris." But then the debris moved. One of the shattered moons of Ganymede, what they thought was lifeless rock, began to pulse with faint blue light. "Sir," said the technician, trembling, "that's no rock." Before the commander could respond, the entire fragment turned. What had looked like a mountain unfolded into panels of smooth black alloy. Engines ignited silently, and the debris rose into space, revealing markings burned deep into its surface, the silver circle of Earth. "It's a ship," someone screamed. "But it's massive. How is that even possible?" The object's hull shimmered, reflecting no radar, no light, no life signs. It opened like a flower, releasing hundreds of smaller crafts that disappeared instantly into hyperspace. The alien fleet fired every weapon they had, beams of energy slicing across the void. But the shots passed straight through the target, as if space itself refused to hold their power. The flagship's sensors flickered. Direct hits, no damage detected. The Xyrax general slammed his claw against the control board. Impossible. Nothing can. His voice stopped. The ship's lights dimmed, and every console screen turned black. Then a single word appeared on every display, glowing in bright white letters. Acknowledged. "Who's sending this?" shouted an officer. "Trace the source." The communications officer stared, horrified. "It's coming from inside our own system." Inside? The general froze. Inside the ship. The bridge fell silent. The next second, the entire fleet lost power. Engines failed, gravity fields collapsed, and one by one, the ships went dark. From the outside, the Xyrax formation looked like a graveyard of drifting corpses. No explosions, no movement, no sound. Just silence. Other fleets watched from afar, confused. The Van Admiral received the report and laughed. So the Xyrax ships malfunctioned. Typical primitive tech. He didn't laugh for long. Minutes later, his fleet reported the same anomaly. Lights flickering, navigation failing, strange pulses echoing through their cores. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple energy spikes around us." "Identify them." "They're moving." "No, sir, they're orbiting us." The Admiral looked out the window and froze. Around his fleet, tiny points of blue light shimmered against the black. They moved with perfect precision, forming a sphere around every ship. "They've surrounded us," whispered his second-in-command. "But where did they come from?" The Admiral's voice trembled for the first time in his life. "Not where," he said. "When." He didn't understand what he meant until the lights flared. Every blue point expanded, bending the void like glass. And then the stars vanished. The fleet was gone. On Nethraprime, the Galactic Council received thousands of distress signals, all cut off mid-transmission. Panic spread through the halls. "They're retaliating," shouted one senator. "We have to fight back." "Against what?" another demanded. "We can't even see them." The Speaker of the Council stood, trying to calm the chaos. "It's sabotage," he insisted. "No species can erase fleets that size." But deep down, even he didn't believe his own words. The alien scientists analyzed the last data fragments and found something horrifying. The energy patterns around the destroyed fleets didn't match any weapon. It was not explosion, not heat, not antimatter. It was displacement. The fleets hadn't been destroyed, they had been removed. "Removed from where?" asked the Speaker. The scientist's voice trembled. "From reality." Meanwhile, inside the human base beneath Mars, the commander watched the holographic feeds of alien distress calls vanish one by one. "Containment successful," reported the AI. "Enemy fleets neutralized." The commander stood silently for a long moment. His expression was not victory, it was sadness. "Status of civilian evacuation?" he asked. "Complete. No casualties on human side." "Good." He exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the red dust outside. They wanted peace on their terms. Now they'll learn what happens when silence answers arrogance. Across the stars, the alien media networks collapsed. The few surviving transmissions showed fragments of glowing ships moving through the void, their forms invisible except when light bent around them. Some aliens called them ghosts. Others said they were weapons. But a few understood the truth. Earth had not gone silent out of fear. Earth had been preparing. Every century of quiet expansion, every colony built far from the Council's gaze, every new technology hidden behind false trade data, it had all been part of the plan. Humanity had been surrounded for years, but they had never stopped building. They had turned isolation into strength. In one of the Council's war rooms, the Xyrax general argued with the Speaker. "You have no idea what you've done," he shouted. "We should have ended them when we had the chance." "And how would you end what you can't even see?" the Speaker snapped. "You think they are gods?" "No, the general whispered. I think they stopped being just human. The speaker turned to his aides. Send a message to all sectors. Find them. Force communication. We must know what they want. The aides hesitated. Sir, we've already tried. And every time we send a signal, it returns with the same response. Which is static. Then, one phrase. What phrase? The aide swallowed hard. They say, peace was our gift. The speaker's hands went cold. And what follows? The aide whispered, silence. Across the galaxy, fear turned to dread. Ships stopped moving near human space. Colonies abandoned outposts. Even pirates refused to approach the edge of the solar system. They all remembered the words spoken at the conference. Then so does your sky. It wasn't a threat. It had been a prophecy. Inside the dark corridors of Earth's deep command, the ambassador who had once stood before the council now stood before a massive window overlooking the black expanse of space. The stars outside flickered faintly, their light bending toward the solar system as if gravity itself bowed before something unseen. Status of operation response, he asked quietly. The AI replied in a calm tone. All enemy fleets eliminated. All transmissions terminated. Galactic silence achieved. The ambassador nodded once. Begin Phase 2. Confirmed, said the AI. Directive Omega activated. The ambassador looked up at the dim starlight and whispered softly. They wanted to teach us peace. Now we'll teach them what peace costs. And in the blackness of space, the first human warship uncloaked, a vessel so massive that its shadow covered the moon it orbited. Its hull shimmered with lines of blue light, forming a single glowing emblem across its surface, the same silver circle that had once been mocked at the council. The ship turned slowly toward the stars, engines silent, waiting for a command that would rewrite galactic history forever. The galaxy had gone quiet. Too quiet. After the first human retaliation, there were no more explosions, no more transmissions, no more battles. Only silence. Entire alien fleets had vanished without leaving debris, signals, or survivors. The council tried to call it temporary interference, but everyone knew the truth. Something had changed. The silence wasn't absence. It was warning. From the core worlds to the outer rim, alien ships stayed close to home. Patrols stopped traveling near human space. Trade lanes were rerouted to avoid the Sol system completely. Planets that once mocked Earth now dimmed their lights at night, afraid that the stars themselves might be watching. Every child, every elder, every commander remembered the same whispered line, "Then so does your sky." It had become prophecy. Still, the council refused to admit fear. "We cannot show weakness," said the speaker, his voice trembling slightly during the emergency session. "If we act frightened, we prove them right." The Xyrax general slammed his clawed fist on the table. "You talk of fear as if it matters. They erased fleets. They control space itself. What kind of enemy does that?" The speaker glared at him. An enemy that bleeds like any other. But his eyes betrayed him. He didn't believe it. No one did. Reports began to pour in from distant colonies. Sensor echoes that looked like ships, faint energy distortions near dying stars, signals repeating human codes that no one could trace. "It's like they're everywhere," whispered an analyst. "Or nowhere." The Varn scientist stood before the council with a hologram of strange patterns floating in the air. "These distortions," he said, "appear to be gravitational imprints. Not weapons, not warp trails. They are echoes, afterimages of something massive bending reality." The speaker frowned. "You mean they're ships?" "Perhaps," said the scientist. "But these imprints move faster than light. They appear, vanish, and reappear elsewhere. It's as if space is reacting to them, not the other way around." The council chamber fell silent. The Xyrax general leaned forward, voice low. "They are building something." "What makes you say that?" asked the speaker. "Because they aren't attacking," said the general. "If they wanted war, they'd have finished us. But they're waiting. Planning. You can feel it. Like the air before lightning. The others exchanged uneasy glances. He was right. The silence felt alive, as if something was watching from behind the stars. On the outer colonies of the Van sector, patrol ships began disappearing. No explosions, no distress calls, just gone. On the mining stations of the Zyrax, workers reported seeing blue lights under the ice before their communications failed. And across the dark side of Nethra Prime, a strange shadow appeared in the sky, faint, massive, and shaped like an eye. The people looked up and prayed. The council ordered calm broadcasts across the networks, assuring the public that everything was under control. But even as the words echoed through the comms, the lights in the chamber flickered. "What now?" snapped the speaker. "Another power surge." The technicians scrambled to check the systems. "No, sir. The interference is external." "From where?" "Unknown," said the technician. "It's not a signal. It's gravitational." "From what?" The technician swallowed hard. "Earth." Across the galaxy, every system at once registered a new energy wave coming from the direction of the solar system. It wasn't an attack, it wasn't radiation. It was soundless pressure, like the entire fabric of reality holding its breath. On Nethra Prime, gravity itself trembled for 2 seconds, enough to make every structure creak and every creature look up. The Zyrax general turned pale. "They're not hiding anymore." The speaker's hands shook as he gripped the table. "They can't reach us from there." "Can't they?" the general whispered. "They already reached our fleets." In deep space, near the ruins of the destroyed sectors, something began to move. The last surviving alien recon team, flying near the edge of the Orion Rift, caught it on their scanners. "We're detecting an object," said the pilot. "Large, extremely large." "How large?" "Bigger than any station. Bigger than any fleet." The captain frowned. "Impossible. Is it a black hole?" "No, sir," the pilot said softly. "It's moving." The ship turned its external cameras toward the darkness ahead. Through the faint glow of dying stars, they saw it, a silhouette that swallowed the light around it, its surface rippling with energy like molten glass. It wasn't a ship in the normal sense. It was something older, vaster, silent. And on its surface, etched in faint blue light, was a symbol. A circle. The mark of Earth. "Send this to the council," shouted the captain. But before they could transmit, every system on their ship froze. The screens went black, and a voice, calm, human, cold, whispered through their comms. "Observe quietly." The crew froze. Then the blackness outside shifted. Hundreds of similar shapes appeared across the void, surrounding the area in perfect formation. The captain's voice broke. "They're everywhere." The transmission ended. The council received only static. The speaker turned to the Zyrax general. "They're showing us their strength." "No," said the general, shaking his head. "They're showing us restraint." The speaker stared. "Restraint?" "Yes," the general said bitterly. "Because if they wanted us dead, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The truth hung heavy in the air. The silence deepened. On the far side of the galaxy, the stars near the human border began to dim. Astrophysicists couldn't explain it. "The light is bending," one said. "It's like the energy is being absorbed." "Absorbed by what?" "By them," the scientist whispered. "By Earth." The entire galactic network started to fail. Navigation data scrambled, communications satellites lost contact, and wormhole gates flickered out. Travel across sectors became dangerous, sometimes fatal. The universe itself seemed to be shrinking, folding inward toward one point. Still, the council refused to surrender. "They want fear," the speaker said. "We will not give it." He didn't know the cameras were recording. He didn't see his own reflection on the polished table, pale, trembling, and broken. Far away, beyond every scanner, beyond every scope, the human fleet watched. Hidden in the shadow of stars, their ships drifted silently, engines off, lights dimmed, invisible to all detection. On board the command vessel Erebus, the human admiral stood before a massive holographic projection of the galaxy. Red dots marked every enemy fleet. One by one, those dots flickered out as the humans neutralized them quietly, efficiently, without noise. All systems stable, reported the AI. Phase 2 preparation complete. The admiral nodded. What is their state? Fear, said the AI. Confusion. Denial. Good, the admiral said softly. That means they're listening. He turned toward the viewport, where the faint blue glow of Earth's artificial sun burned brighter than any star. When the storm comes, he whispered, they'll finally understand what silence means. In the great blackness beyond, a pulse spread outward, slow, rhythmic, steady. Across the galaxy, even the dying stars flickered in sync with it. The heartbeat of Earth. The calm before retaliation had begun. The galaxy had forgotten what fear truly was, until that day. It began without warning, no fleet movement, no threat transmission, no declaration of war. The silence that had hung across the stars for months shattered not with sound, but with the sudden trembling of reality itself. Across the council worlds, the stars flickered. Lights dimmed. Oceans froze for a heartbeat. Every machine, every network, every communication link went dark. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, without a single explosion, every ship in orbit received a transmission. No source, no encryption, no coordinates. Just a voice. Calm. Human. You broke the peace you begged for, it said. Now listen. The voice echoed through the minds of billions, resonating not through speakers but through the very atoms of their worlds. On Prime, the capital of the Galactic Council, the speaker stood frozen before the massive holographic map. One by one, the red dots representing their fleets began to blink out, turning into blue circles, human signatures. That's impossible, whispered the technician. They're ours. Those are our ships. The Xyrax general roared, trace it. Find their fleet. The technician's hands shook. There is no fleet, sir. They're everywhere. The holographic display zoomed out. The entire galactic arm flickered with blue. The aliens realized too late what had happened. Humanity wasn't attacking them. Humanity had already surrounded them. For centuries, the humans had hidden bases in abandoned sectors, within moons hollowed by mining, inside nebulae that distorted senses. Every colony the Council thought destroyed had become a fortress. Every old probe, every derelict satellite, every forgotten station had been turned into a weapon. The silence had been a net, and the galaxy had walked straight into it. This can't be real, gasped the speaker. They can't possibly control this much space. They don't control it, the Xyrax general muttered, eyes wide. They own it. The moment he said it, the room shook. A low, deep hum filled the air. The glass walls vibrated. Outside, the night sky began to glow faint blue. Sir, shouted an officer, the energy levels, they're rising across the whole sector. From where? Everywhere. On the edge of the system, something vast appeared. At first, the Council ships thought it was a black hole, a distortion in space swallowing light itself. But then the distortion moved, rippling like water. Out of it emerged ships, thousands of them, vast and silent, with hulls that drank the starlight and engines that made no sound. The fleet of Earth had arrived. They didn't transmit identification codes. They didn't answer hails. They simply waited, their blue lights glowing like the eyes of ancient gods. The Xyrax admiral on the defense station ordered an immediate attack. Fire everything, he screamed. Now! Dozens of cannons lit up, plasma beams and antimatter shells tearing across the void. They hit their targets perfectly. But nothing happened. The beams passed through the human ships as if through mist. The readings came back zero, no heat, no impact, no resistance. Our weapons, they're doing nothing, whispered the weapons officer. Impossible, roared the admiral. Increase output. Sir, we can't lock onto them. They're inside our targeting fields. Before he could reply, the space outside began to bend. The stars around the human fleet twisted into spirals, forming rings of light that pulsed in rhythm. Then, without warning, those rings expanded. The entire battlefield turned white. No sound, no explosion, just light. Blinding, pure, endless. When the light faded, the Council's fleet was gone. No wreckage, no signal, no survivors, only silence. The Speaker of the Council watched the hologram in horror as the blue rings spread from one system to the next. "They are wiping us out," he shouted. "They are purging every fleet." The Varn scientist, pale and shaking, whispered, "No, sir. They're erasing war." "What?" "Every military satellite, every weapon system, every data archive containing war schematics, all gone. They are deleting violence from the galaxy itself." On the world of Karath Prime, the Zyrax Military Command Center erupted in chaos. "Shut down the reactors," yelled the engineers. "Purge the defense systems." But it was too late. Their entire planetary defense grid flickered and went offline. Massive orbital cannons froze, their targeting sensors turning inward. For a brief second, the Zyrax could see their own reflection in the dark metal before their screens turned black. Then the same voice returned, soft, calm, impossible to ignore. "You wanted peace on your terms," it said. "Now, you will have it on ours." Across hundreds of worlds, every weapon fell silent. Guns refused to fire. Engines refused to start. Artificial intelligence cores rebooted with one line of code appearing in their system logs, "Peace protocol activated." And then came the final signal, one that no one could block. Every planetary broadcast system lit up simultaneously. In every home, every ship, every city, the same message played. A holographic projection of a man, the same human ambassador who had once stood at the council conference table. His face was calm, his voice low, his words slow and deliberate. "We gave you our word," he said. "We offered peace. You answered with blood. You saw our silence as weakness. You saw our patience as surrender. Now you will understand that silence is not the absence of power, it is the presence of control." He paused, eyes steady. "The council is no more. The fleets are gone. The weapons are quiet. This is not vengeance. This is correction." The hologram shifted, showing images of Earth, its blue oceans glowing under the artificial sun, its continents covered in networks of light, its orbit filled with massive structures that pulsed like the heartbeat of a god. "We will not rule you," he said. "We will not conquer you. We will simply remove your ability to destroy." The hologram faded to black, leaving one final sentence glowing on every screen: "The stars are silent now." On Nethra Prime, the council chamber stood in darkness. No one moved. The speaker sat in his chair, his hands shaking. "What have we done?" he whispered. The Zyrax general stared blankly ahead. "We thought we could break them," he said. "But they were never the ones who needed peace. We were." Outside, the sky of Nethra Prime shimmered faint blue as human ships passed overhead, moving without sound. They didn't fire. They didn't destroy. They simply drifted, their shadows falling across the world like judgment. The alien children below watched from the cities, whispering the new name the galaxy had begun to use, the Silent Ones. Humanity had not won a war. They had ended the concept of it. In the far distance, the last council distress beacon blinked weakly before going dark. The human flagship Erebus stood at the center of the formation, larger than any structure ever built, its hull reflecting the stars like a living night sky. Inside, the Admiral looked over the holomap showing the galaxy in blue light. Every red mark, every threat, every weapon, every empire, had vanished. "All systems secured," said the AI. "No resistance detected." "Then it's done," the Admiral said quietly. "Yes," replied the AI. "Peace restored." The Admiral looked out at the stars, which now pulsed faintly in rhythm with Earth's signal. "Peace," he repeated softly. "Or silence." The AI paused. "Is there a difference?" Outside the ship, the fleet began to vanish, one vessel at a time, slipping into fold space until only darkness remained. The galaxy was left with nothing but the quiet hum of creation, and the faint echo of a voice that would haunt history forever. You broke the peace. Now live with the silence. The galaxy had become a place of whispers. The stars that once sang with signals and chatter were now silent, their light trembling as if afraid to shine. The Galactic Council, or what remained of it, met one final time in the fractured capital orbiting Nethra Prime. The Grand Hall, once filled with delegates from hundreds of worlds, now held barely a dozen. They sat in darkness because even their own energy systems had begun to fail. Outside the shattered windows, the remains of their cities glowed faintly blue under the watch of unseen human ships drifting in the distance. No weapons, no fleets, no defenses, just that eerie glow. This cannot continue, the speaker said, his voice trembling as he slammed his fist against the metal table. We are the Council. We must rebuild, take back control, restore communication. No one answered. The Xyrax general stared at the floor, his claws twitching nervously. The Varn scientist sat motionless, his black eyes reflecting the faint blue light from outside. Say something, the speaker shouted. We cannot just sit here. The Xyrax general finally spoke, his tone low and bitter. Sit here? What else can we do? Every ship we send into orbit vanishes. Every attempt to rebuild our communication grid is erased. They are watching us. The speaker gritted his teeth. Then we must contact them. Negotiate. There must be reason left in their species. The Varn scientist looked up slowly. You think this is about reason? He asked. You think this is about revenge? The speaker frowned. Of course it is. They're angry, punishing us for what we did. The scientist shook his head. No, they're not angry. That's what makes it worse. They're calm. They're precise. They've removed emotion from war. That's not vengeance. That's evolution. The room fell silent. The speaker's voice broke slightly. Then what do you suggest? Surrender. To what? The Xyrax general growled. You cannot surrender to something that doesn't even speak. They spoke once, said the scientist. And their silence since then is the answer. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The room plunged into darkness. For a second, no one breathed. Then the holographic projector in the center of the table flickered to life, showing static at first, then forming an image, Earth, glowing blue, surrounded by rings of faint light. No, whispered the speaker. It's them. The image expanded until it filled the entire chamber. A voice followed, calm and clear. Galactic Council of the remaining species, it said. You have violated your own charter, your own promises, your own peace. For centuries, you ruled through fear. For centuries, you silenced others. Now, you will learn silence. The speaker shouted, This is madness. You cannot erase an entire civilization. The voice ignored him. Your fleets are gone. Your weapons are inert. Your power structures are disassembled. You will live, but you will not command. The galaxy will begin again. You can't do this, the speaker screamed. We built this galaxy. The voice grew quieter. No, you only ruled it. We are restoring it. The hologram vanished, leaving only darkness. Outside, the ships that hovered over Nethra Prime moved slowly into formation. The Xyrax general rushed to the window, eyes wide. They're aligning above us, he whispered. The sky rippled like water. Hundreds of blue rings appeared in the clouds, each one expanding and rotating slowly. Are they preparing to attack? Asked the speaker. The scientist shook his head, his voice hollow. No, they're cleansing. A deep hum filled the planet, vibrating through every structure, every mountain, every drop of air. People fell to their knees, clutching their heads as light poured from the sky. It wasn't heat, it was cold, pure, weightless. When the hum stopped, the city still stood, but everything powered by technology was gone. Machines turned to dust. Weapons crumbled into sand. Only life remained. The Xyrax general looked around in horror. Our reactors, Our entire defense grid, gone, said the scientist. They've stripped us of everything we used to control others. The speaker fell into his chair, his voice weak. Then it's over. No, the scientist whispered. It's beginning. Far away, in orbit above Nethra Prime, the human fleet watched the planet reset. On board the command ship Erebus, the admiral stood before the viewing window, the glow of the planet reflecting in his eyes. Operation resolution complete, said the AI. Technological suppression field active across all hostile systems. Civilian populations unharmed. The admiral nodded slowly. And the council? Disarmed, the AI replied. Still alive. For now. For now, the admiral repeated softly. Let them understand what peace feels like when they no longer control it. The AI paused. Shall we continue with Phase 3? The admiral turned away from the window. Not yet. Let them speak first. Let them beg for peace, truly this time. Back on the surface, the speaker gathered what little courage he had left. If they can hear me, he said, standing in the council chamber, I demand communication. We wish to negotiate. To understand. The chamber lights flickered again. The holographic projector turned on by itself. This time, it didn't show Earth. It showed a human, a woman, dressed in a dark uniform, her expression calm and emotionless. You had centuries to understand, she said. You chose domination over reason. You called your power order. You called your cruelty law. You were wrong. The speaker stepped forward. We made mistakes, yes, but you cannot erase us for them. The woman's eyes softened just slightly. We're not erasing you. We're reminding you. Reminding us of what? The speaker asked desperately. Of what peace costs, she said. The image vanished. Silence returned. Outside, the fleet began to drift away. The Zyrax general slumped against the wall. They could have killed us, he whispered. But they didn't. The scientist looked up at the fading blue glow in the sky. That's the point, he said. Death would have been mercy. Across the galaxy, other worlds experienced the same event. The human fleet appeared above every capital, every stronghold, every war world, not to destroy, but to disarm. Weapons turned to dust. Armies vanished overnight. Empires collapsed without bloodshed. The stars grew quiet. The council's name was erased from every database. In its place, one word appeared, restored. Days later, a lone council probe, one of the few pieces of tech still working, managed to capture a final transmission near the edge of the galaxy. It showed the human fleet assembling one last time, their ships forming a vast circle around a blinding sphere of light, a construct the size of a star. Before the signal cut off, the words appeared across the feed. The era of command is over. The age of understanding begins. And then, nothing. Back on Nethra Prime, the surviving council members sat in silence, staring at the empty sky. For the first time in millennia, no one held power. No one gave orders. The universe had been reset to balance. The speaker whispered into the still air, "They've become gods." The scientist looked at him and shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "They've become what we were supposed to be." Outside, the faint glow of the human fleet shimmered one last time before fading into the black. And in the endless quiet that followed, the galaxy finally understood what it meant when the silence spoke. The Galactic Council was dying, not in war or blood, but in silence. The great marble halls that once echoed with arrogance now stood hollow, filled with the whispers of defeated rulers. Entire empires that once controlled hundreds of systems were now powerless, their armies disarmed, their fleets gone, their pride shattered. No one dared to speak the word resistance anymore. The fall hadn't come with explosions. It came with quiet, deliberate precision, the kind that only humans could create. On Nethra Prime, where the council once ruled, the last remaining leaders gathered in what used to be their command chamber. The room was dark, lit only by the cold blue light coming from the sky above. Outside, the human ships still hung in silent orbit, unmoving, like shadows of judgment. "We can't survive like this," said the speaker weakly, his voice thin from sleepless nights. Our systems are dying, our technology fading, our colonies cut off. We have to re-establish control. The Xyrax general laughed bitterly, the sound harsh in the quiet chamber. Control? Look around you. We don't control air. We don't control light. We don't even control gravity on our own world without their permission. The Varn scientist stood by the shattered window, staring out at the sky. They haven't attacked in days, he said quietly. They are waiting. Waiting for what? Snapped the speaker. The scientist turned to face him, his expression pale and calm. For us to understand. The room fell silent again. The speaker slammed his hand on the table. Understand what? That we're their slaves now. The scientist shook his head. No. That we were never as powerful as we thought. Outside, the blue light above the planet shifted, and suddenly the ground trembled. The entire chamber shook, dust falling from the ceiling. What's happening? Shouted one of the aides. Is it an attack? No, whispered the scientist, eyes wide. It's something else. Across the galaxy, the same tremor echoed. The human fleet that had remained hidden for months now began to move, not in aggression, but in purpose. Ships aligned themselves into vast patterns across the stars, forming spirals and circles so large they could be seen from light years away. Every observer who looked at the night sky saw the same shape, an eye made of stars, looking down. They're sending a message, said the scientist. A final one. On board the human flagship Erebus, the admiral stood before the central holographic display. The galaxy shimmered in blue light, its sectors divided by lines of human command. Status of all systems, he asked. All sectors synchronized, said the AI. Council remnants contained. Resistance, 0. Civilian populations stable. Then begin transmission, said the admiral. The AI pulsed once in acknowledgement. Across the galaxy, every surviving world received the same broadcast. The hologram of the human ambassador appeared again, calm, sharp, and distant. Galactic Council, he said. You built your order upon fear, upon control, upon silence forced by oppression. You silenced others, believing silence meant obedience. You were wrong. His eyes glowed faintly blue as the transmission expanded, filling entire skies on alien worlds. Silence, he said, is not submission. It is balance. It is patience. And patience is something humanity has perfected. The broadcast shifted, showing the ruins of Council warships drifting in orbit, their hulls covered in frost. You tried to take our peace from us. You broke it. Now we've shown you what peace truly is, the absence of your command. The Speaker of the Council fell to his knees, staring at the projection as it filled the chamber. You can't do this, he whispered. You can't decide for all of us. The ambassador's hologram looked down, his expression unreadable. We already did. But we will not rule. The galaxy doesn't need rulers anymore. The hologram faded, replaced by a new image. The symbol of Earth, the silver circle, burning across every sky. Below it, new text appeared in every language. Council dissolved. Power returned to the worlds. Balance restored. On Nethra Prime, the speaker buried his face in his hands. It's over, he murmured. Everything we built. The Xyrax general stood up slowly, his voice hollow. No. Everything we stole. Outside, thunder rolled, not from storms, but from the atmosphere itself, as if the planet was exhaling after holding its breath for centuries. In the deep orbit above, the human fleet began to divide. Massive vessels detached from the main formation, moving toward the corners of the galaxy. They weren't advancing, they were leaving. Their mission was complete. On board the Erebus, the AI spoke softly. All Council assets neutralized. New governance structure emerging in multiple sectors. Should we maintain observation? The Admiral shook his head. No. They'll watch themselves now. They'll remember. And if they don't? Asked the AI. The Admiral's expression hardened. Then silence will remind them again. As the fleet prepared to leave, the admiral looked at the glowing blue sphere in the distance, Earth. Its rings shimmered, reflecting light like a living halo. For centuries, he said quietly, they called us violent, dangerous, unpredictable. Maybe they were right. But we were also the only ones who remembered what peace was supposed to mean. He turned to his officers. Record this moment, he said. Not as a victory, as a lesson. The fleet acknowledged, and one by one, the ships began to vanish into fold space, their engines whispering against the void. On the surface of Nethraprime, the alien leaders stepped outside for the first time in days. The sky was clear, the stars bright again. There were no ships, no blue lights, no sound, only calm. They are gone, one of the aides whispered. The speaker looked up at the night sky, tears in his eyes. No, he said softly. They are watching. In that quiet moment, something extraordinary happened. The cities of Nethraprime, once dark and lifeless, began to hum faintly. Power returned, not the old council grids, but something new. The air shimmered with faint lights, not from machines, but from organic systems integrated into the world itself. The Varn scientist stepped forward, awe in his voice. They've given it back, he said. What? The speaker asked. Energy. Life. They're rebuilding what they took, but differently. Balanced. The scientist looked toward the horizon, where faint patterns of light formed across the landscape, like living circuits pulsing with rhythm. They didn't just destroy the council, he whispered. They rebuilt the galaxy in its place. Across the stars, other worlds experienced the same phenomenon. Deserts turned green. Broken moons were repaired by unseen machines. Lost ships reappeared, their crews unharmed, their weapons gone. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy, they had healed it. But no one dared call it mercy. In the archives that remained, the final record of the Galactic Council ended with a single entry. The humans did not destroy us. They ended us, gently. The last image captured by the surviving observation drones showed the human fleet leaving the galaxy entirely, heading toward the black space beyond known existence. Their engines left trails of blue light that lingered for centuries, glowing across the void like the veins of the universe. In time, those trails became known as the Paths of Silence, monuments to the day humanity unmade an empire without firing a single shot. And on the edge of that quiet galaxy, carved into the remains of the old council spire, words in ancient Terran script glowed faintly in eternal light. We asked for peace. You mistook it for weakness. Remember us when the stars grow quiet again. It started with a pulse. Not sound, not signal, but light. Across the galaxy, stars flickered once, then again, as if something vast had brushed across reality. Every world, every surviving station, every species looked to the sky at the same moment. And then, it began. The broadcast of truth. It didn't come from one direction. It came from everywhere, from the dust of moons, from the void between suns, from the magnetic storms of nebulae. No one could block it, no one could trace it, no one could stop it. A soft blue glow filled the air on every world, forming a holographic figure, a human, standing in silence. His uniform bore no rank, no symbol of power, only a small emblem, the circle of Earth. When he spoke, the sound wasn't heard, it was felt. His voice resonated inside every mind, calm, steady, heavy with something beyond anger or peace. To the children of the stars, he began, you sought to dominate, to conquer, to define peace as silence under your control. You built empires on fear and called it order. You broke our peace, and in doing so, reminded us who we are. Every world stopped. On Nethraprime, the fallen council watched the projection hovering over the ruins of their chamber. On the Zyrax homeworld, entire cities gathered in open fields, kneeling as the sky turned blue. Even the cold Varn, who once believed only in logic, stood still, their mechanical hearts pulsing in rhythm with the voice. We are humanity, the figure said. We are the voice that refused to die when you tried to silence it. We are the hands that built from ashes, the minds that turned storms into stars, and the hearts that remembered kindness even when surrounded by cruelty. The image shifted, showing the history of Earth: wars, disasters, rebuilding, unity. It showed humans standing beneath the broken sky, rebuilding again and again. "You called us dangerous," he said. "You were right. Because danger comes from those who have nothing left to lose, and everything to protect. You thought we wanted to rule. We didn't. We only wanted to live. You called our strength chaos, our silence weakness, our patience fear. You were wrong about all of it." The broadcast changed again, showing the council's fleets burning, their cities falling into darkness, but no screams, no war, only stillness. "When you took our peace, we learned that silence was our greatest weapon. Because silence is not surrender. Silence is the moment before creation, the pause before the storm." The words echoed like thunder wrapped in calm. On dozens of worlds, alien leaders fell to their knees, unable to look at the image. On others, tears, or their species equivalent, fell freely. The Xyrax general, who once ordered Earth's destruction, stared at the projection from his ruined command tower. "We could have shared this peace," he whispered. The human's voice seemed to respond directly to him, even though it spoke to all. "You could have," it said. "But you chose control over cooperation. You chose fear over faith. And so, we reminded you, not with fire, not with domination, but with reflection. You saw your own cruelty mirrored in silence." The projection turned, as if looking into the stars themselves. "The council is gone. The galaxy will not be ruled again. Power will belong to those who understand what peace means. We will not interfere unless you forget." Across the skies, the blue light intensified, spreading until it covered entire planets. The voice grew softer, deeper. "We are not gods. We are not saviors. We are what you created when you broke your promise." The light dimmed. "Remember us not as conquerors, but as consequences." On Nephra, the old speaker stepped forward, his voice breaking. "Why are you showing us this?" he cried into the light. "Why tell us all this now?" The projection turned toward him. "Because truth must be spoken once, and remembered forever." The speaker fell to his knees as the projection raised its hand. A new image formed: Earth, glowing like a blue sun, surrounded by a shimmering ring of light. Around it, thousands of human ships formed a vast circle, each one pulsing in sync with the planet. "We are done with war," the voice said. "We are done with lies. The galaxy will heal. The wounds you caused will fade. But remember this: peace is not given. It is built. And when you break it again, you will hear the silence return." The transmission began to fade, but before it vanished, the voice spoke one last time. "To those who listened, thank you. To those who fought, rest. To those who will rebuild, we are watching. We always will." Then the light disappeared. The skies cleared. The stars burned bright again. Across the galaxy, the message lingered like a heartbeat in the air. People looked at one another, unsure whether to cheer, cry, or pray. On the Xyrax homeworld, the general turned to the horizon, his soldiers silent behind him. "They didn't destroy us," he said. "They judged us." On the cold, metallic world of the Varn, scientists rewrote their archives, changing every mention of humanity from threat to balance. And on Nephra, the surviving council members stood together for the first time without shouting. The speaker looked up at the empty sky. "So this is peace," he said softly. The Varn scientist nodded. "No," he replied. "This is silence, and it's beautiful." Far away, in the orbit of the Milky Way's edge, the human fleet began to move. Inside the flagship Erebus, the admiral stood at the viewing deck, watching the galaxy spin slowly in the distance. "Transmission complete," said the AI. "All known civilizations have received and recorded the message." "Good," said the admiral. "Delete all copies from our system. It's their story now, not ours." "And what of us?" the AI asked. "Where do we go next?" The admiral looked out at the black expanse beyond the galaxy, where no light had ever reached. "Forward," he said quietly. Always forward. The fleet engines ignited, their blue light reflecting like ghosts across the void. Slowly, the human armada began to vanish into the darkness, crossing the boundary where known space ended. The last signal from the Erebus carried only one phrase, a human whisper echoing across eternity: "We kept our promise." And in the centuries that followed, whenever new civilizations rose and looked at the stars, they saw faint blue trails cutting across the night sky. The ancient stories said those were not stars or comets, but the echoes of those who once silenced the galaxy, not with war, but with peace centuries past. The stars changed, empires rose and fell, but the memory of that day, the day the silence spoke, never faded. The Galactic Council was gone, its buildings reclaimed by forests and sand, its name reduced to a whisper in old archives. Yet no one dared to erase it completely. The story was too powerful, too terrifying, too sacred. Children grew up under the glow of the restored suns, listening to tales their ancestors once feared to tell. They called it the Age of Quiet Fire, the time when humanity ended war without making a sound. On the world of Nethraprime, grass grew through the cracks of the old council hall. The once mighty throne of the speaker lay broken, its surface engraved with strange new symbols, Terran script, faintly glowing, unaging. The words read, "Peace is not the end. It is the beginning you refused." Scholars came from across the galaxy to study the ruins, their ships silent, their hearts heavy with reverence. Some said the humans had disappeared entirely, leaving no trace but the blue light that sometimes flickered in the skies. Others said they had gone beyond the galaxy itself, crossing into the black between universes. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: they were still watching. On distant worlds, strange phenomena began to occur. When wars threatened to ignite, communications would fail. Weapons would malfunction. Armies would fall asleep as their power grids turned cold. And when the people awoke, their cities were unharmed, but every weapon was gone. It became a warning written in the stars: the silent ones are near. Over time, the galaxy changed. The Zyrax built new cities that blended with nature, growing their homes from living crystal instead of metal. The Varn turned their logic toward peacekeeping, becoming guardians of balance rather than calculators of conquest. New species rose, small, curious, hopeful, raised in a world where violence had become myth. Every schoolchild, from the outer colonies to the core worlds, learned the same story. Once, the galaxy broke peace, and the humans answered. And in every classroom, the same question was whispered. What were they? The teachers always paused before answering. No one truly knew. Some said humans were gods who had learned to control creation itself. Others said they were ghosts, the evolution of mortal beings who transcended their own limits. But the oldest records, written before the Council's fall, described them best. They were humans. Just humans. On the 1000th year after the Day of Silence, a grand gathering took place on Nethraprime. Every species sent a representative. The old Council's chamber, rebuilt in white stone and living vines, filled again, not with arrogance, but with unity. At the center stood a small monument, a cube of black glass that hummed faintly when touched. Its surface showed no reflection, yet when light struck it, faint blue ripples appeared, forming the shape of the Earth's circle. The Varn Elder, now the keeper of history, spoke to the crowd. Our ancestors sought to rule, he said. They believed peace was the silence of obedience. Humanity showed us that peace is the silence of understanding. We owe them our existence and our future. The crowd bowed their heads, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. The elder continued. Some say they are gone. Some say they still walk among the stars. I say they became the stars. The chamber filled with light as the cube began to glow brighter. A low hum filled the air, familiar, ancient, and unmistakable. The hum of a Terran engine. Gasps echoed across the hall. The cube opened like a flower, revealing a small, floating sphere, blue, radiant, and pulsing like a heartbeat. Then a voice, calm, human, timeless, spoke from everywhere and nowhere. We left because you learned. You remembered what we fought to teach you. The galaxy no longer needs us to hold it together. It needs only to remember. The crowd stood frozen as the light bathed them all in warmth. We are not your rulers, the voice said softly. We are your reflection. When you forget peace, you forget us. When you live in balance, you live with us. The sphere pulsed one last time, sending a wave of energy through the chamber that spread across the planet, across the stars, across the galaxy. Ships detected it for light years, not as a weapon, but as a melody. A soundless rhythm that every heart could feel. Then the sphere dissolved into dust, rising into the air like stardust before vanishing completely. Silence followed, the kind that brought tears, not fear. On that day, every world in the galaxy aligned in rotation for a single moment, something no law of physics could explain. The scientists called it impossible. The believers called it a blessing. The truth was simpler. The galaxy was saying thank you. The age of silence ended, and the age of harmony began. But even then, in the deep reaches of space, beyond every known chart, something moved. In the darkness between galaxies, a faint blue light flickered, slow, steady, like a heartbeat. The ship was ancient, colossal, wrapped in shadows. Its hull still bore the emblem of Earth, glowing faintly as it drifted through eternity. Inside, the last remnants of humanity slept in silence, their bodies suspended in light, their minds reaching farther than stars. And as they dreamed, the voice of their commander echoed through the void. Mission complete. Peace achieved. Awaiting new dawn. The ship's engines pulsed once, and then again, and then it vanished into the folds of space, leaving behind a trail of blue fire that stretched forever. Centuries later, explorers found fragments of that light in the black between galaxies. They said it sang when touched, a melody too beautiful to be of any world they knew. And so the legend grew, that when the galaxy forgets peace, the stars themselves will call for help. And from the silence, humanity will answer. Because some promises are eternal.